Hey ladies, welcome to The Power of the Ask, the podcast where we ditch the waiting and embrace the asking for what we truly deserve.
Welcome to The Power of the Ask.
Welcome to The Power of the Ask podcast, the podcast that helps you get what you need financially and personally. We are so glad you're here today. My name is Lisa Zeiderman. I am managing partner of Miller Zeiderman, and I am one of the co-hosts with my dear friend, Precious Williams.
Hi, Queen Lisa. Love it. And I'm Precious Williams, the killer pitch master and proud founder and CEO of the Perfect Pitch Group. And welcome back. So this week, we're so excited to introduce you to Jen Hemphill, an accredited financial advisor and host of the podcast, Her Dinero Matters. Ooh, don't you already love that?
That is so good.
And as y'all know, in the Power of the Ask podcast, we always have amazing guests. So we're taking a little taste of Jen Hemphill, who's a seasoned accredited financial counselor dedicated to empowering others on their journey to financial independence and confidence. After tackling financial challenges, Jen began sharing her experiences and insight through her podcast, books, events, and speaking engagements. Her passion lies in helping people navigate the complexities of personal finance, transforming their financial confidence to positively impact every area of their lives. So Jen is also a 2024 honoree for Finfluencer. Did y'all hear that? Finfluencer of the Year for our Power of Impact Awards Gala on October 28th at the NASDAQ building in New York City. Jen, it is such a pleasure to have you here with us today, and we can't wait to hear more.
Jen, we are really excited to have you, and I'm going to ask some very interesting questions along with Precious, so we can't wait to dig in here. So to begin with, can you share a bit about your journey? What led you to become an accredited financial counselor? And maybe you could even explain to us what an accredited financial counselor is first.
Yes.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation. So an accredited financial counselor is essentially, it's through what an organization called AFCPE. And essentially, we are guiding people in their finances. We're not advising them on where to invest in stocks and bonds, but really it's more on the financial education piece and more of a holistic approach. So that's essentially, and how I came to be is one, I'm a military spouse. So as a military spouse, one thing that I did know, and fortunately my husband guided me along the way with that, is we were going to move a lot. But I was also wanted a career. And I also wanted to be at home whenever we started to have kids. And I didn't know what any of that looked like, but I was clear on what I wanted. And I had to figure it out along the way. What I also knew, and my husband really actually made me realize, my interest in finances, because I was the one doing the budgeting. I was kind of telling him, hey, don't be spending on this or don't be spending on that. I was really the one taking charge of our household finances. So later down the line, as I was exploring, what do I do as a military spouse? What do I get into that I can take with me with every move that allows me the flexibility to be at home when we have kids? And that led to my husband sending me an email from the FINRA Foundation, where they were offering what's called the Military Spouse Fellowship Program. And actually it's a program that's existent still to this day. And it started, I think, back in 2006. I'm a 2008 fellow. And so I went and got went through the training and classes, became an accredited financial counselor. And then it was trying to figure out, okay, now I have this. Now what? What can how do I actually implement this? Yes, I can provide financial counseling, but exactly how do I go about doing that? And that's when I dove, unbeknownst to me, that this was going to happen. That's when I dove into the world of entrepreneurship and how to become an online entrepreneur, because essentially that's exactly how. So that's actually how I got started, is finding, trying to figure out. I knew what I wanted. I knew what I wanted out of life. I just didn't know what that looked like. And then I was flexible as to what it could open up to, because I did not ever envision myself as a small business owner. So that's the story.
Great story.
You know what sounds amazing is you being open. You being open, handling finances, but also being open and being a military wife and wanting still your own career. So even in saying all of that, what were some of the biggest financial challenges that you all faced? And how did it kind of shape your approach to helping others beyond your family?
Well, like any other newly married couple, we definitely faced a lot of financial challenges. We had to navigate learning each other, learning our own financial habits and what we wanted and, what we wanted our money to do, and really coming together as a couple to figure out what are our financial goals. But what I didn't know, and I feel like that was my biggest challenge later, what I didn't know was how much of an impact that my upbringing or our upbringings have on how we perceive money, how we manage our money, and the decisions that we make with money. And that I didn't have that realization until 10 years into our marriage, where we had good financial habits. I was definitely the saver. I like to save. He liked to spend, but we would use our credit card responsibly, where we would use it for expenses and some bills, and we would pay it in full. So we had some good habits that didn't create any more debt. But 10 years into our marriage, we had just PCS, and we moved to New Jersey, to McGuire Air Force Base, New Jersey. He deployed, and I was doing what I usually do when we're on a new duty station. I was looking at our finances. I was readjusting the budget. So you see, I had some good financial habits, right? But what I didn't realize at that time, or what happened at that time, I should say, is that I was looking at our finances and I was not seeing the needle really move. So 10 years have passed. So we've been, together, married 10 years. We still were in student loan debt. We didn't have any credit card debt, but we had student loan debt, and we were depleting our emergency savings. Remember, I was always a good saver, but we would find ourselves depleting our emergency savings, and they weren't necessarily emergencies. We were also taking money out of the 401k, which,
Right.
yeah. So we were taking money out. So I really questioned myself, because at this time, I was already in the process of becoming a financial counselor. So I was already getting more of that education. At this time, even before becoming a financial counselor, I was reading personal finance books. My family and friends looked to me for financial guidance. So when I had this moment, well, you know what? We don't really have it together. There was a lot of shame and guilt around that, because I was looked upon as smart with finances. And granted, it's not to say our finances were in a lot of disorder. It was just we weren't making a lot of progress. And as I started questioning as to why, that you start to question and ask these questions and you start to reflect, I realized that one thing that kept on recurring in my mind is the thought of, we don't have the money. We can't afford this. And that was a constant in my life. And when I asked myself, okay, why, when we are doing okay financially, we're not necessarily living paycheck to paycheck, why am I thinking this way? And what I realized was that that's what I heard growing up. I heard that all my life. And so that translated, granted, we're a couple. It's not like it was all me. He had a different upbringing. What happened with that, because as a result of my upbringing I was born in Colombia, and we came to the States when I was 8. And in those times, I'm aging myself a little bit, but in the 70s or early 80s.
You're in good company.
And the economy in Colombia was not that great. It was hard to get a job. Both my parents are first gen to go to college. My dad, as an American going, he was a foreigner there in Colombia. It was hard to get a job, and even with a financial education. So as a result, he was pumping gas. He was baking and selling baked goods. He was doing what he needed,
Whatever
he needed
he
to do.
needed to do.
Whatever needed to do. So all that, there was a lot of challenges, and I saw my parents, the stress and the arguments and all that, the lack of money had. And so we moved to the States. And I say move because I have the privilege that my father is an American citizen. So I didn't have to go through all the process of immigration like others that come from other countries. So we got to the States, my parents started over, but I always heard them tell us, if I were to ask them, and I was that kid that didn't really ask a lot of times, I heard only once or twice, we don't have the money, so I didn't like to ask my parents for money. So what happened is in adulthood, I didn't realize that continued that thought process, which therefore led to actions, decisions, and that depleted those funds. And granted, it was not all me. Granted, again, this is, we're married. My husband and I are married. But I just realized how much of an impact that mindset has on our decisions. And if we're not aware of what I call our past money story, our current money story, we're going to see some of the same cycles. And so we can't change the cycles unless we're aware of them, especially those cycles that don't serve us.
It's fascinating, actually. And I think that that's right in terms of the paths being so important so that you understand the cycles, which really brings me to my next question. You've talked about financial confidence, and it had to be very hard, I would think, for you to build financial confidence. So do you feel like you actually have managed to feel financially confident? And if so, or if not, what does it mean to you to feel financially confident? And why do you think it's so crucial for people to actually develop that inner feeling of financial confidence?
Well, first, financial confidence is a state of being. It's not necessarily a state of belief, of feeling. The belief, having beliefs that don't serve you can influence that confidence, right? But really, financial confidence, in my opinion, is a state of being. It's the state of being, of trusting yourself to make decisions with what you know. And that you're in really proactively learning and being okay with failing. Because even though I've done this for so long, and financial professionals have years and years of experience, they're still going to have financial mistakes. But the difference, I think, is not necessarily in financial professionals, but in someone who is financially confident, is that they're going to take those actions. They're going to trust themselves because they know their own financial situation best. And they're also proactively learning, meaning they're doing the reps, like you do the reps at the gym. So when you do those reps at the gym, you're lifting weights, you're getting stronger, all right? And you need strength, like in case you just fall. If you're doing those reps, you can get back up quickly. So financial confidence, again, is a state of being. You have to trust yourself. And it's really important because when we're not financially confident, we don't have the belief in ourselves. We lack some belief. And therefore, we may find ourselves in a stagnant position where we take very little action or none at all with our finances. And therefore, our finances don't get to where we want them to be.
I just feel like you're dropping gems, and the longer you speak, the more I'm just like, you're in the head of so many people right now.
Oh.
So I have the same question, but it's based on timing. So pre-pandemic, what were some of the most common, financial pitfalls that you saw, couples and families fall into? And then how did that change after the pandemic or in the last 4 years? Are they similar? Have they changed? Share that with us.
Yeah, I don't know if they have really changed. Of course, during the pandemic, we saw a lot of people saving, right? Because they were at home, they were able to save more. But we're seeing them now, years after, right? Seeing them fall into those same positions. So really the pitfall, in my opinion, in my experience, is not planning for occasional expenses. And what do I mean by that? Occasional expenses are those expenses, hence the word, that come occasional. So occasionally. So it can be a yearly bill. It could be traveling. It could be gifts, those type of things people don't plan, because when you have if you have a fixed a fixed income that doesn't change from month to month, and your expenses, your what I call fixed and variable expenses, are about the same every single month. So let's just say, for simplicity purposes, you have $2,000 coming in every single month and $2,000 going out every single month. And then let's say December comes, you spend on Christmas, you spend on gifts, but that $2,000 is still that comes in stays the same. The $2,000 that goes out stays the same, only because you're buying gifts and doing all this other spending. What are you going to do with that? So you have to plan for those. And I'm a big proponent of, there's people call it different things, but you need to set that money aside. So what I have my clients do, and people I work with, is I have them go through month to month throughout the year and estimate how much are you spending for these occasional expenses. Divide that total number by 12. Put it in your budget as a line item, treat that as a bill, and save that every single month. If you can, because sometimes it may not fit, because a budget's a puzzle. Sometimes it doesn't fit like you want it to, but that's the idea. And the other pitfall is, honestly, people don't know their bottom line. And by that, I mean their income minus expenses. What is left or not left? Or maybe what are you overspending after you take care of all of your expenses every single month? So in my opinion, those are the two biggest pitfalls.
You know, Jen, you have managed to build a huge community around empowering others financially. How do you go about making sure that you keep your message fresh, that you engage across your podcast, your book, your events? What do you do? Give us that secret.
Listening to my audience, listening to what's going around me. But I also don't pressure myself to get it all right. I'm human. I'm imperfect, right? And so I don't pressure myself to get it all right. And I'm okay with that. And I'm just also flexible and just adjusting with the times. There's social media. When you have a book, when you have this, my podcast, when I promote myself as a speaker, I rely not just on relationships, but also social media. Things are always changing. So you have to be flexible to adjust to the times, to what's going on, and make a pivot in what you're doing. So that flexibility, I think, is also important.
Ladies, are you ready to take control of your future? Do you dream of financial stability, freedom, and a life that truly deserves you?
For over 20 years, Savvy Ladies has empowered women from all walks of life to make smart financial choices, achieve our goals, and build a brighter future.
We built Savvy Ladies as a community of women supporting women. We offer free financial educational programs, a trusted helpline, and guidance and advice from America's top financial professionals.
You can access the financial helpline at savvyladies.org or where you get your apps under Savvy Ladies. Savvy Ladies equips you with the knowledge, confidence, and support you need to thrive. So don't wait. Join Savvy Ladies today and start building your financial confidence and well-being now.
Queen, we've talked about mindset a lot, and you alluded to what you used to hear as a child and growing up. What role does mindset play in really managing your personal finances? And also, how can that help others build better habits in shifting mindsets?
Yes. So in my book, I talk about the concept of the money headquarters. And in the money headquarters, just think of it as your financial home. And there's three components to the money headquarters. You've got the mindset, you've got the money skills and the money action. So I'm going to focus more on the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
The mindset, when we think about financial education, when we think about all the messaging on finances out there, granted that's changing over time, it's really focused on the budgeting, the saving, maybe the investing, those type of things, which are money skills. But what is not focused on is the mindset. We're starting to hear more about that when it comes to finances. But before, when you heard about mindset, it was more about personal development, but it was never really tied into finances. And that's why I started with the big reason why I also started the podcast was to really relay that message. But so with the mindset, in my experience and also my opinion, even though we focus on the money skills, that's about 10% of that money headquarters. But the money mindset is about 60%. And so the mindset, if you think about purchasing a home, when you purchase a home, you go through inspections and you want to make sure that the foundation of the house that you're purchasing is sturdy, that it's a good foundation. If there's issues with the foundation, that doesn't mean, depending on how big the issues are now, but if there's issues with the foundation of the home, you may not want to buy a home, or if you choose to buy a home, the house will have some sort of problems. It's not to say the house is going to crumble, but there's going to be problems because you bought a house with foundational problems. So with the mindset, if you think about that as the foundation of your home, if you have a mindset that a scarcity mindset, it's not to say that you're going to go bankrupt, that you're going to go broke, but until you fix that mindset to a better one, to one that serves you, you're going to have continuous challenges and uphill battle within your financial journey. And so to shift that, you have to be aware, one, because a lot of us aren't aware. Like I said, it took me a long time. I was in my 30s till I realized that I had a continuous cycle of thoughts related to my money just on replay. And so unless we understand and are aware of that, we can't change that. We can't make any changes. So we have to understand and be aware of our past money story and how that compares to our present money story, and see what patterns are being repeated and what patterns that aren't serving us are being repeated. And that's how we can address the problem, is being aware and intentionally and consciously making a shift of those patterns and thoughts.
Jen, are there misconceptions that people have about financial success that you have observed? And when you observe these misconceptions about financial success, how do you help people shift their perspectives?
Well, there are definitely misconceptions because we follow other people's definitions of financial success versus defining our own version of financial success. So that's first and foremost. That's the issue. And in shifting the perspective, we have to find our own definition of financial success. What does it look like and why? And it can be on how much money that you make. It may not, it's financial success, but it may be that you're just out of debt, and that's financial success no matter how much money you make, right? So you have to define that for yourself versus looking at yourself and comparing to what's out there and deemed as financially successful. So that's what I would say to that.
Queen Jen, I'm going to take my glasses off. I want to have a whole mask off moment. We know you have an amazing podcast. We know you're certified in what it is that you're doing and really helping others. Social media is having such an impact on people's psyche and what they would love to have versus what they have right now. you're probably always asked the same type of questions. But is there a question you wish people would ask you more that you want to expound on? Especially for the listeners of the Power of the Ask podcast. I always think of what is one thing that you would love somebody to ask you. I know I always want people to ask me different questions outside of pitching and speaking that really allow me to shine or also allow my thought process to really shine. But is there a question you wish more people would ask, whether it's your clients, whether it's something you really want to talk about that's still in your wheelhouse, but no one ever asked you?
That is such a powerful question. And I would say,
not to put you on the spot, but I just...
No, it's a great question. And I would say, because as women, we tend to lack a lot of confidence. We tend to not have a lot of belief in ourselves. Mm-hmm. And we tend to shorten ourselves in all sorts of ways, right? From financial to career to all things. So if I would love, and I said it would be a simple answer, but I would love more people to ask me, am I good enough? Am I deserving enough of more? Because we also, as women, carry a lot of guilt, especially if we pamper ourselves, because we are innately, or how this science abroad has created us, we were quote unquote, and things are shifting, we were the ones to take care of the family, right? We're the ones, the nurturers, right? And so when we nurture ourselves, or when we spend something on ourselves, or just splurge on ourselves, we tend to carry a lot of guilt because, oh, I'm doing that for me. That's selfish, right? And so I would feel a question along those lines, because my answer would be, if someone were to ask me, am I good enough? Am I deserving enough? And I know that just sounds silly, but it's important. And the answer is yes. Absolutely yes.
Jen, the reason why I asked you this, Queen Jen, the reason why I asked you this question is because I've been asking of my network things I've never asked. So I'm a speaker, international professional speaker. People don't ask me for a speaker reel. People don't ask me for a speaker one. And so sitting with my team, and I said, you know what? As we've changed, we should probably do an extended cut of what I'm like on stage, what I'm like in person, testimonials, and just really go all the way out. So I asked some people in my network to look at my extended speaker reel and my speaker one. And the response I got back was shocking. Number one, Pasha, this is great. It's really wonderful. But you say I a lot. And to some people, it sounds like you're bragging. I'm not saying I think that, but it sound to other people like that, which kind of goes to what you're saying. So I sat with that. I wasn't angry, but it strengthened a resolve in me that as a Black woman, as a 45-year-old woman, if I do not talk about the things that I have done, the narrative is shaped by others who may throw statistics and everything on me that have nothing to do with me. And if I was someone else, those questions are never asked because it's assumed that they've done so much. So it's not bragging if it's true. It's letting people know that you are establishing a narrative around yourself. And if some people think it's bragging, that's okay. But this is who I am, and I'm defining who I am. So to go back to what you were saying, am I worthy? Am I this? Yes, you are. And in order to change mindsets and shift mindsets around finances, that's why I asked you that question. Because I know that's something in a lot of women, a lot of men, maybe even a lot of kids. So thank you.
Thank you. And there is the national anthem playing. I don't know if you want to wait. I mean, for you on your side, it's not going to. Okay, now it's gone. But whenever I talk, now I forgot about that. The 5 o'clock.
All good. So Jen, I need you to whip out your crystal ball. Okay, you have it ready. Take that crystal ball out. And I want you to look in your crystal ball and think about the fact that interest rates are starting to come down, that we're in an election year, that things are going to change likely. And I'm going to ask you to look deep into that crystal ball and tell me what are some of the financial trends or challenges that you think that people need to be aware of in the next few years, whether it be interest rates or school loan issues or anything that you can think of in that crystal ball that you got in front of you. Now, I'm going to say one thing. When people ask me in my practice what's going to happen, I always tell them the crystal ball is black. I can't see it. It is black, and I don't know, because if I knew, I wouldn't be sitting in this room. So now I'm going to ask you anyway.
Yeah. Well, protecting your financial identity is one. I mean, it's with technology ever advancing and scammers getting even more scammier. We have to protect our identity. We have to understand about freezing our credit. That is important. Taking advantage of compound interest, investing what you can with what you have. It doesn't matter if you're not making a ton of money or don't have a lot of money left over to spend, but the power of compound interest cannot be denied. And if you don't if you're listening right now and you're wondering what that is, you can Google it. There's actually a great calculator at investor.gov, and that really shows the power of compound interest. So I think definitely you with the interest rates going down, I know the American dream has always been to buy a home. That's what we're sold. Buy a home. If you buy a home, you've made it. But I think we're in times that even though interest rates are climbing down, we don't know what the market is going to do in terms of prices of houses. Prices of houses have been crazy. So you really have to, because I always have to, if you want to buy a home, you want to answer why. And a lot of people realize this because that's what we've been sold to do. So is it more advantageous to buy a home or rent a home? Because with buying a home, you not only have to pay the mortgage, you have to pay the maintenance of the home. And if you're living in big cities like New York City or LA or DC or places like that, it may be more economically advantageous to rent a place. Just because you rent a place doesn't mean you're losing on not buying a home. You can invest that money that you're saving in the market, right? So there's that. I think the other part, as a mother of two boys, as a mother, one that's in college, one that's about to go to college costs have been on my mind. And I think really being intentional and really being deliberate in terms of the cost of college, in terms of the student loans, because there is a huge student loan problem. People carrying lots of student loan debt. I think being very deliberate with having the conversations with your kids, and if it's you that's going to college, just being deliberate on the rate of, what is the return on your investment. I hope you don't go to college, pay $200,000-$300,000 over the course of your college to become a teacher, for example, right? Teachers, I wish they deserve a lot more, but the reality is that they don't get paid what they should be paid. So I think those are the areas.
It's great advice, actually. And there's so many, new rules and IRS rules, et cetera. So I hope that people take advantage of really understanding what those are as the years, go on.
Well, Queen Jen, we have a question, our final question that we ask each and every one of our amazing guests. So why is the power of the ask so important to women, especially financially? Why is it so critical today?
Well, we definitely want to be advocating for ourselves. And in advocating for ourselves, we need to be asking questions. But before we ask those questions, we have to ask ourselves a question. And that's really getting crystal clear on what we want. And also the question that I would ask, I actually had a conversation today with a good friend. I was interviewing them for the podcast. So this is, I give credit to Wislia. Wislia and Willa have a beautiful podcast called Wealth and Wisdom. But she shared with me about the importance of understanding what financial fulfillment is. So I think the question, so that goes along the lines of what I shared, is we need to ask ourselves, before we can ask great questions to advocate for ourselves, to get what we deserve and want, we have to ask ourselves what we want and understand what that looks like. But even deeper is understanding what that financial fulfillment is, because that touches not only upon the financial aspect, but the stuff within that really fulfills us, right? So that's what I would leave you with, is really ask yourself, what is financial fulfillment for you? Is it investing in properties? Is it investing in the stock market? What does that look, and how does that translate to fulfilling you? So it's not just investing in the stock market or investing in real estate, but really, why does that fulfill you? So that's what I would say.
Queen Jen, it's like I hear, whose voice are you really hearing? Is it someone else or is it really yourself? So
Right.
Queen Jen, thank you for being another great guest on the Power of the Ask podcast, powered by Savvy Ladies. I can speak for my great co-host, Lisa Zeiderman, and myself. As y'all can tell, we bring the great guests and their stories and how they've gotten to where they've gotten to. That's why asking is so important. That's why bringing up questions is so important. So you keep coming back. Subscribe and tell a friend to tell a friend. What? Tell a friend to subscribe to the Power of the Ask podcast. You keep coming back. We get better and better and better. And thank you all for another exciting edition of the Power of the Ask.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Power of the Ask, ladies.
Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to spread the love with #PowerOfTheAsk.